So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my iPhone XS Max on iOS 16. Now this iPhone did come out in 2018. It was the highest end version at the time. It actually came out a little bit before the iPhone XR. This device has 4 GB of RAM and the Apple A12 Bionic chipset, which was a really good chip. Even the iPad Pros that are running a version of this chip still run really well. So a 2.49 gigahertz clock speed, and you could see right there 3.7 or 6.7 gigs of RAM, or you could say round it up to 4 GB of RAM to say 4 gig of RAM phone. Remember, iOS doesn't need that much RAM to function well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lock screen. You could see the newer iOS 16 lock screen on board, and you can see it performs quite well. You can see when I do the Face ID, very smooth. I've tested this out a few times. The flashlight works just fine here. You could see if I open up the camera, let's go ahead and put something in here really quickly. If I open up the camera, that also works fine. Let's actually test out the camera here to see how that also performs. No shutter speed delay. You hold that down, that also works. Hold it to the left, you get your burst. Video also works just fine here. Take a photo and video, that also worked. Portrait, everything working here. So public beta 1 coming soon in July should be pretty good in terms of the camera if you want to go ahead and try that out. So let's go ahead now and see if we can kind of tap in from the lock screen, see if those things work just fine. Let me go ahead and tap the next one. Calendar's fine. So the toggles are working okay as well. So let's go ahead and get some Face ID action in here. And you can see what right into the weather as you would expect. So the newer lock screen feature working just fine. So let's go ahead now and just quickly confirm this is iOS 16. This is the developer beta 1. So if you're looking for the official review, that will be later this year. So stay tuned. I'm going to revisit these phones and talk more about them, how they run and stuff like that. But we're just going to see how it works here on iOS 16 beta 1. So you can see I have a few applications lined up, but let's go ahead and go through just kind of the home screens, kind of see if we can get this thing to chop up. And I don't think it's going to happen here. The iPhone XS Max was again a top phone at the time, so I don't think Apple's going to slow this thing down. You could see we do have a search right there. Maybe over time the phone will just stop being able to handle the latest and greatest software, but it's not yet. The A12 is still a really good chipset, and it's looking very good here. This is only the first beta. When they put the final touches on, I expect this to run fantastic. I am noticing it's getting a little bit warm here though, so probably not as efficient as I would like. Again, it was installing Asphalt 9, but I was already testing it out. It does get a little bit warm here overall, so I do have to mention that. And keep an eye on that battery as we go throughout this video. Right now it was at 98. I think it was at 99 when I started the video, but not dropping too fast so far. Okay guys, so one thing to note about this software though is that I don't see the astronomy wallpapers on here. So if you're looking for that, you're probably not going to get them here. I do see weather, but I don't see the astronomy ones, the ones with the globe and stuff like that. Not available, at least right now. Let's go ahead and close everything out, and we are going to do a full app test here. So I was already testing them prior to the video. So let's go ahead. You can see we already dropped down to 97. Let's go to clock here. Let's go to Groupon, and you see that was fine and everything looking good. Now certain applications, people have been mentioning that when they're running the app will just crash. That's pretty common amongst betas. So if you are looking to download this, do keep in mind some of your apps might become unstable, but your core apps for iOS are going to run fine. So I think the iPhone XS Max is definitely good enough to run it. Definitely do backups if you want to run the beta process, but this phone is definitely fast enough. One thing that you might not like is battery does tend to drain a little bit faster on these betas. It is a beta version for a reason, but you want to throw it on there, maybe revert back, give it a shot, see if you like it, stuff like that. That probably will be okay as long as you do a beta. Applications like Instagram, Twitter, some of those lighter apps like that, definitely running just fine here. Amazon gonna do okay as well. We'll go on to Best Buy here. And what I'm noticing too is that the gestures, this is an area I'm going to be paying attention to as iPhone XS Max and other iPhones start aging more. I want to pay attention to gestures because I feel like that's an area where it might get a little slower as we age, but we'll see if that actually happens. So far, so good for the iPhone XS Max. Looking pretty good. Now let's go ahead and go to Asphalt 9 and see how long this takes to load up. Let me feel that heat on the phone while we're talking. Yeah, it's a little bit warm. I wouldn't call it toasty, but definitely a little bit warm on the back there. So downloading the Asphalt 9 actually took a little while, but I'm not sure if that's my Wi-Fi or whatever, but you could see some of the games like this will take some time to get into, but this is common. Even on an official version, these games that actually take a little bit more time are going to take a while because they have better graphics and a lot more to load up. So this could be because it's the first load after doing an update as well. That could take some time as well. And you can see we are now in. Let's go into ESPN, and you can see ESPN loaded just fine. And again, this performance is solid, man. Like, I'm pretty happy overall. You know, I've seen betas absolutely wreck iPhones, like seriously wreck them. So this is not looking bad. And I think one of the reasons for this is that iOS 16 is not a massive update in terms of the looks. It's kind of a refinement. It's like adding touches to iOS 15. So for me, this is not a major rehaul iOS 16. It's definitely just kind of adding some touches to make it a little bit better. You can see we dropped down to 96, but all the applications seem to run just fine. Let's go back through them, see if we get any lags and stutters on these applications or anything like that. Maybe a reload. It is a potential this phone will reload. It does have 4 gigs of RAM that Best Buy reloaded. It doesn't have the 6 gigs of RAM of the newer iPhones. Instagram, looks like we have a total reload there. On Instagram, let's go into App Store, eBay, Twitter, weather, calculator, but you can see those gestures really smooth, and clock. Now on my iPhone 12 Pro Max, I actually seen when going through the apps, it looked a little choppy. Nope, looks pretty good there as well. So application performance, pretty solid. Just some of them again will definitely reload or maybe be choppy depending on how they operate on iOS 16. So keep that in mind if you want to download. I will say, feels pretty warm though. So if you're gonna run the beta, keep a case on this thing. It might get a little bit uncomfortable. All right, and here are our final Geekbench scores: 1069 on the single core, 2310 on the multi-core. So that's actually a little bit lower than the average XS Max. So this one, not surprising. Let's go into the multi-core, slightly lower than the average XS Max. So according to the Geekbench 5, this is actually underperforming compared to your run-of-the-mill iPhone XS Max with iOS 15.5. So keep in mind, this is not quite as good of a performer, but it's also not horrible. And I do believe if you do a proper backup, you have maybe a computer you could restore it to 15.5, it's okay to try this thing out when public beta does become available. And again, more features and more things will be added as time goes on. Overall, I wouldn't say this is the best performer I've seen. It's pretty close to the 10R though. I think the 11 did a little bit better for sure. Obviously the newer chip, but this one's definitely better than your 8 and your 8 Plus. So I like the future for this phone. I think after a few refinement updates, a few performance enhancements later in the stages, I think we have a good looking year here for the iPhone XS Max. Let me know your thoughts on the iPhone XS Max. Do you have this phone? Do you plan on keeping it a while? Are you guys gonna be trying out the beta? You're just gonna wait till the fall? And if you have any other iPhones you wanna see on this How Does It Work Run series, let me know down below in the comments section. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here, be sure to be well, and peace.